Right, good morning, welcome back. Now today, Yamaha XJR 1300 headstock bearing replacement. Now this is a project and I've set myself a budget for it. A budget that I have to fit everything into. That means that every job I do has to need doing to be important enough to fit into the budget. So how do I know that my headstock bearings need doing? Now the main telltale symptom of headstock bearings worn out is the notch. I think we all know that. The notch in the middle of the steering where it kind of locks itself in the center for some reason and you need a bit of resistance to move it left or right. And when you're going up the road and trying to ride that bike, you're getting a wander as you're trying to do a straight line. You can't seem to perform those micro movements you need to do to keep a bike in a straight line. You have to make them a bit more accentuated because of this wretched notch and the bike ends up wandering all over the road. That's the biggest telltale. But no motorcycle goes from completely healthy, clean, smooth steering to a notch in the center overnight. It doesn't happen instantly. It's a very gradual, slow process. And it's only very subtle, tiny little changes in the steering that if you're paying attention, you might notice them. That's the time to take a close look. So what are those tiny, subtle little differences in the steering as it wears out that you need to look out for? The first thing to consider is likelihood. Whether your riding usage is the kind that's likely to cause more wear than normal. Now if you're out canyon carving or on a track day, rolling through the bends all the time, steering lock to lock, then you're going to be doing a lot less steering wear than somebody who's just straight line touring. Now strange as that may seem, there's a specific reason why it works that way round. Now here's a quick close-up demonstration of exactly why bikes that go in a straight line all the time slaughter their headstock bearings far sooner than bikes that go round bendy roads all the time. I'll show you. Okay, here's a taper roller bearing. This is going to be what's inside the headstock of any modern motorcycle. And if we just use a pen to mark the inner part of the bearing against the outer, so we can see the movement far more close up. Now with the two marks in line with each other, we consider that straight ahead, and then roughly 90 degrees would be about the full range of movement of any motorcycle steering headstock. 90 degrees, lock to lock. So if you're going around your canyon or your track day, steering like that, lock to lock or almost all day long, you're spreading the weight and therefore spreading the wear over that area. But if you're touring mile after mile on a much heavier bike, then those little micro movements that we do to keep a bike in a straight line are focused in one single spot. And that is exactly where the notch comes from. All the wear is focused in one place. So how does that affect my XJR? This isn't a touring bike, really, and it isn't a track day bike either, but it is a heavy bike. It has done 40,000 miles, and looking at the tyres, it's done a lot of miles in a straight line. So there's my likelihood to tell me that these are likely to need replacing. Now the second thing that confirms likelihood is the state of the swinging arm bearings on this bike. They were absolutely destroyed, so it is likely that these are worn as well. And when I turn the steering lock to lock, I can feel a little bit of wear. Not the infamous notch, but I can certainly feel a little bit of wear, and it only leads one way. So today we're going to strip the entire front end of the bike out, get the bearings out, and we'll have a close look at them and see if I'm right. Now with these naked bikes, everything is bolted to the headstock, but fortunately, by the look of it, it's all held on by just 4 little 8mm heads. So if I take those out, it should just pull away, just break free from the 2 yokes, and then I could hopefully just hang it up out the way and carry on with what I'm doing. That will save me hours. Right, I've got almost all the furniture free of the headstock. The only thing hanging on is the ignition switch, and as we all know, they are screwed to the top yoke from underneath with headless screws. There's no undoing those. You have to unplug the wire, take the whole lot, put it in a machine, and then drill them out properly. There's no need to do that because I'm only going to put it straight back in afterwards. All I need to do is remove the center nut here, lift that top yoke off, and then hang it up like everything else. Then I can take the collars off and drop the whole assembly out the bottom. Now, having learnt my lesson from the swing arm bearings, I decided to do this video in part 1 and part 2 because I wanted to get it apart to see what I find in there before I order the parts. And I'm glad that I did, because I've discovered ball bearing races in this headstock, probably from the factory, rather than the more common taper roller bearings that you get in most bikes these days. So if you're stripping yours apart to do this job and you discover these, it doesn't need to be confusing, it's a simple explanation. The factories used to originally fit these ball bearing races, I imagine, because they were infinitely cheaper to manufacture. Now, when you order yourself a set of headstock bearings for your bike these days, unless you specify OEM spec, then you will normally be sent a set of taper roller bearings. So if you'd like to read up on the differences between ball bearing races and taper roller bearing races, then there's lots of information online, different forums, different articles. Look them up, find out the differences, and you can make an informed choice for yourself on what you want to choose. Me personally, I'm going to order myself a set of taper roller bearings, as is the popular choice, and in the next video, we'll swap them over and rebuild everything. I'll see you then. Now, if you're out canyon carving or track day riding, constantly in the bends, rolling lock to lock, then you're going to be doing a lot less steering head bend. Now if you're out canyon carving or track day riding, always in the bends, rolling lock to lock, you're going to be doing a lot less steering head wear than somebody who's out straight line touring. Now strange day though that may,